one last question. Uh, any advice for people, future journalists, people getting involved in the media here in Nashville? Anything you think people should take away from listening to you? And
Well, I've been a lawyer in my life, and I think that's a very important function. Uh, Lawyers have the opportunity to do public things in the public interest, to defend people and to represent people who need lawyers. And then I have been on both sides of the First Amendment. If you go back and look at the Tennessean, the Tennessean, no newspaper could have been more favorable to the candidacy of a candidate, than the Tennessean was to me, both in 1960 and 1970. But with equal vigor, the Nashville Banner was opposed to me, and they did everything they could. If you go back and look at the morgue of the Nashville Banner, you'd just be as shocked at the intensity of their anti-hooker publicity to try to keep me from being governor, both in 1966 and 1970, a matter about which they had a selfish interest. They didn't want the Tennesseans' own man, Hooker, who was a part of the triumvirate with Siegenthaler and Amon, to be in control of the state of Tennessee by having the chief executive officer be one of the principals in the Tennessean world. And so the Banner was brutal in their attacks against me, which were basically an indirect attack against the newspaper, the Newspaper Printing Corporation would own both papers. That was the entity that owned the both papers, because they had owned part, the Tennessean owned part, or before that, the Tennessean, the Amon Evans family, and Jimmy Stallman and the Nashville Banner were 50-50 owners in these two newspapers. So it was a unique experience to be in a position where the Nashville Banner absolutely tried to destroy me. I mean, they could not have been more vicious. Ultimately, one night, this newspaper that had been my enemy, all of a sudden, I owned a part of it and was the publisher of that very newspaper that had tried to destroy me. And that was the city room, the people at the newspaper who had worked for the administration, the scheme, and those who were in my opposition were all of a sudden confronted with the fact that they had a new owner, a new publisher that they had been very hard on, and I thought unfair with, but at any rate, hard. So I've had a very good insight into what it's like to be on both sides of the aisle, what it's like to have the First Amendment give you the opportunity to own a newspaper, and whether you're a reporter or a newspaper owner or whatever, that First Amendment is a passport to stick your nose in other people's business. And that's what the newspaper business is all about, sticking your nose in other people's business, or whether it's the government or whatever it is that you want to write about. And that's a wonderful opportunity, and you can do a lot of good by sticking your nose into other people's business, particularly public business. On the other hand, the First Amendment not only gives a person the right to tell the truth, but the First Amendment also gives you the right to lie. And once you get on the other side of that coin, where the First Amendment is used to lie about you, then you get the feeling of the full impact of the glory of the First Amendment on the one hand, and on the other hand, the threat it is to decency and to good government. It is a First Amendment cuts both ways. Asked Romney and Gingrich in Florida tonight, that First Amendment gives these super PACs the right to lie about other people, and that First Amendment is a blessed thing on the one hand and a very dangerous thing on the other. And so young people like yourself and people who are interested in going into journalism as a career, it's a fascinating career, and I encourage anybody who's interested in public affairs to consider the proposition of becoming a journalist. It is a slice of power that is different than being elected to public office, but in some ways, newspapers have more power than the public officials. They have the power to to influence public opinion. And in many instances, whether you talk about the New York Times or the Los Angeles Times or the Nashville Tennessean or others, these newspapers have had a lot to do with the destiny of the country and the destiny of the local circumstances. And so I would recommend to the people who that are interested in public life, public affairs, to seriously consider a career in journalism. Same thing's true in some ways about the practice of law. The practice of law involves a situation where people are interested in public circumstances, represent one person against another, and etc. And so those two things are interesting to watch intermingle: the law practice and journalism and politics itself, which is sort of intermingling between all of us. So I would say to people your age and others who are interested in the destiny of the country, interested in the destiny of the state, and the government, and the local government, that they should consider running for public office, whether it's for the city council or mayor or governor or senator or president or whatever it is. And we've had in Tennessee here a rash of people who were in public life who went on to run for president of the United States. Estes Kefauver and Albert Gore Sr. wanted to be president. Albert Gore Jr. wanted to be president, and Howard Baker and Lamar Alexander and Fred Thompson and myself. If I had been elected governor of Tennessee in either 66 or 70, I would have run for president myself. And so that Tennessee has mourned a lot of people who were interested in public life, even at the highest level of running for president of the United States. And journalism is an aspect of that. I wouldn't take anything for the opportunity to have been educated by having been a student of journalism, an on-the-job training student that I got from my connection with the Tennessean, and then as the publisher of the Banner, and then as chairman of the board of a worldwide news agency called UPI. And that gave me a deeper insight into the function of the newspaper business and the function of the news business. It is at the core, it's frequently referred to as the fourth estate. You have the executive, the judicial, and legislative branch of government. Then you have this branch that's called the fourth estate, which is the people's right to know and right to participate in the fundamental notion of democracy, which is that we should have a country that functions with the consent of the governed. And the newspaper industry is so deeply involved with the consent of the governed and the political power that comes from the facility to editorially and on the editorial page and on the newspapers advance the public careers of various public actors. And so I hope that the people that you know and who listen to what I have to say here today will deeply consider the intermingling of those things, the function of the press as a fourth estate, function of being a candidate yourself, the function of being a lawyer involved in the distribution of power and the litigation that evolves around public life. All those three things are highly rewarding. Been my great good fortune, I'm 81 years old, been my great good fortune to have been involved in those things, for which I feel greatly blessed. And it really, in large measure, my life, every time I think of Amon Carter Evans, who owned the Tennessean, it brings a sense of warmth to my heart because he was so kind to me, gave me my start, made me the general counsel of that newspaper, supported me for governor of Tennessee. He let me broker the sale of it to Gannett, made me the publisher of the Nashville Banner. And so Amon Evans was my great sponsor, and for which I shall forever be grateful.